Hi there, I've got my reading head on. I'd like to read you some excerpts from, I'll tell you what the book is after. I'll start from the beginning of the book, chapter 1, The World in Space. The story of our world is still very imperfectly known. A couple of hundred years ago, men possessed the history of little more than the last 3,000 years. What had happened before that time was a matter of legend and speculation. Over a large part of the civilized world, it was believed and taught that the world had been created suddenly in 4004 BC, though authorities differed as to whether this had occurred in the spring or in the autumn of that year. This fantastically precise misconception was based upon a too literal interpretation of the Hebrew Bible and upon rather arbitrary theological assumptions connected therewith. Such ideas have long since been abandoned by religious teachers, and it is universally recognized that the universe in which we live has to all appearances existed for an enormous period of time, and possibly for endless time. Of course, there may be deception in these appearances, as a room may be made to seem endless by putting mirrors facing each other at either end. But that the universe in which we live has existed only for 6,000 or 7,000 years may be regarded as an altogether exploded idea. We move on to chapter 3, Beginnings of Life. The knowledge we possess of life before the beginning of human memory and tradition is derived very largely from the markings and fossils of living things in the stratified rocks. We find preserved in shale and slate, limestone and sandstone, bones, shells, fibres, stems, fruits, footmarks, scratchings and the like, side by side with the ripple marks of the earliest tides and the pittings of the earliest rainfalls. It is by the sedulous examination of this record of the rocks that the past history of Earth's life has been pieced together. That much is common knowledge today. The sedimentary rocks do not lie neatly, stratum above stratum. They've been crumpled, bent, thrust about, distorted and mixed together like the leaves of a library that has been repeatedly looted and burned, and it is only as a result of many devoted lifetimes of work that the record has been put into order and read. The whole compass of time represented by the record of the rocks is now estimated as 1,600 million years. The earliest rocks in the record are called by geologists the Azoic rocks because they show no traces of life. Great areas of these Azoic rocks lie uncovered in North America, and they are of such a thickness that geologists consider that they represent a period of at least half of the 1,600 million years which they assign to the whole geological record. Let me repeat this profoundly significant fact. Half the great interval of time since land and sea were first distinguishable on Earth has left us no traces of life. There are ripplings and rain marks still to be found in these rocks, but no marks nor vestiges of any living thing. We move on now to chapter 4, The Age of Fishes. In the days when the world was supposed to have endured for only a few thousand years, it was supposed that the different species of plants and animals were fixed and final, that they had all been created exactly as they are today, each species by itself. But as men began to discover and study the record of the rocks, this belief gave place to the suspicion that many species had changed and developed slowly through the course of ages, and this again expanded into a belief in what is called organic evolution, a belief that all species of life upon Earth, animal and vegetable alike, are descended by slow, continuous processes of change from some very simple ancestral form of life, some almost structureless living substance far back in those so-called Azoic seas. This question of organic evolution, like the question of the age of the Earth, has in the past been the subject of much bitter controversy. There was a time when a belief in organic evolution was, for rather obscure reasons, supposed to be incompatible with sound Christian, Jewish and Muslim doctrine. That time has passed. And men of the most orthodox Catholic, Protestant, Jewish and Mohammedan belief are now free to accept this newer and broader view of a common origin of all living things. No life seems to have happened suddenly upon earth. Life grew and grows, age by age, through gulfs of time at which imagination reels. Life has been growing from a mere stirring in the intertidal slime towards freedom, power, and consciousness. Life consists of individuals. These individuals are definite things. They are not like the lumps and masses, nor even the limitless and motionless crystals of non-living matter. And they have two characteristics no dead matter possesses. They can assimilate other matter into themselves and make it part of themselves. And they can reproduce themselves. They eat and they breed. They give rise to other individuals, for the most part like themselves, but always also a little different from themselves. There is specific and family resemblance between an individual and its offspring, and there is an individual difference between every parent and every offspring it produces. And this is true in every species and at every stage of life. Now, scientific men are not able to explain to us either why offspring should resemble nor why they should differ from their parents. But seeing that offspring do at once resemble and differ, it is a matter rather of common sense than of scientific knowledge that if the conditions under which a species live are changed, the species should undergo some correlated changes, because in any generation of the species there must be a number of individuals whose individual differences make them better adapted to the new conditions under which the species has to live, and a number whose individual differences make it rather harder for them to live. And on the whole, the former sort will live longer and reproduce themselves more abundantly than the latter, and so generation by generation the average of the species will change in the favourable direction. This process, which is called natural selection, is not so much a scientific theory as a necessary deduction from the facts of reproduction and individual difference. There may be many forces at work varying, destroying and preserving species about which science is still unaware or undecided. But the man who can deny the operation of this process of natural selection upon life since its beginning must be either ignorant of the elementary facts of life or incapable of ordinary thought. The book I've been reading from is called A Short History of the World. It's written by a man very famous. He wrote such things as The Time Machine in 1895, The War of the Worlds in 1898, The Shape of Things to Come in 1933, The Science of Life in 1929, and this one, A Short History of the World, was written in 1922, 86 years ago. He says it's common sense for a man with knowledge to deduce. So, for you men of knowledge out there, think about it. 80 years and you're still holding on to the old way. Time for change.